All right, welcome to tonight's monthly Yin Yoga practice. I'm Emily Reed. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm coming to you live from West Suffield, Connecticut. As we're recording this, it is May, mid-May, and usually in the month of May, I like to do a theme around women's health for the Yin Yoga class. Every month I do a new theme. So when I say women's health, it's women, those who identify as women. Today's practice is really for anyone will benefit, but especially women, those who identify as women, empaths and introverts probably too, and those who tend to be just a little bit more emotionally savvy, which can also lead to taking on lots of emotions, whether or not they belong to you. And the reason for that is that we're going to focus on the heart. So a happy heart is the name of the class. And that's because the two meridians that we're going to be focusing on, or energy lines, as they're meridians in traditional Chinese medicine, are the pericardium and the heart meridian. So the pericardium is something that's not really acknowledged in Western medicine, but in Eastern medicine and then traditional Chinese medicine, it's known as the king's bodyguard, the king being the heart, right? So the pericardium, which starts in the it actually starts at the middle finger and comes up the inner side of the arm and comes into the chest. Its energy is in charge of regulating emotions, the basic emotions, and helping you to not absorb or be, when an emotion comes in, you have it, it works for you, or it doesn't, it has its reason, but then we don't need to necessarily hold on to it for the rest of our lives all the time, 100% of the time, 24/7. So the pericardium helps us to do that. It also protects the heart physically and emotionally from any damage or bruising. And together with the heart, if these two meridians are in balance, we feel a sense of peacefulness. We can access self-love more easily. If they're out of balance, it can sometimes show up as like being agitated or very defensive, wanting to blame other people. So, especially as women or empaths or people who tend to just take on emotions easily, I wanted to share this practice today because the chest and the heart tends to be this place where we protect a lot. And for women, especially childbearing women, the chest is the motherly, place where we feed and nurture the children of the next generation. So there's a lot happening in this area for everyone, but especially women. So that's why we're focusing on it today. What I like to do is start by giving you a couple of acupuncture or acupressure points that you can use, and then we'll go into the practice. Sound good? So you don't need to know the names of all these things. I'm a little bit of an acupuncture nerd, but I do want to share them, and they can be helpful. The first one is called Ren 17, and it's literally the middle of your chest. So if you take some fingers, doesn't matter which hand, and find your sternum, sort of the bony bit underneath maybe where the breast line is, and then go up maybe a few finger lengths. And then there's a slightly softer spot there. Most acupuncture points feel like they have a little bit of a dip or a divot to them. And roughly in that area, you can use as many fingers as you like, and you're just going to gently touch or press there. And if you feel inclined, you can close your eyes. But this point can help open the chest and open yourself to, processing emotions of love and self-love and acceptance. Sometimes holding this point as you breathe, you might become aware of your breath more. That can feel nice. And all of this is optional. So if you're like, Emily, I'm going to do without any of these practices, you can skip or do something different. You're welcome to stay here as long as you like or return to it at any time. I want to show you one more point, and it's another one, but on the pericardium line. So the pericardium runs, I mentioned, from the middle finger down the middle of the inside of the arm. I'm going to use this hand so I'm not holding my watch. But pericardium 6, again, you don't have to remember these things. If you take 3 fingers and place them at your wrist crease, and then come right at that point after the 3 fingers between those 2 tendons that most people have 2, right? You can see them probably. It's right between there. And if you poke around gently, but poke around, you might feel a little bit like, ooh, that's slightly tender there. Often that's a sign that that's where the point is. And you can relax your hand once you've found that point. And this is a point that some of you may be familiar with, especially if you get seasick. Ever had those things around your wrist with a little bit of a button on one side? That's what they're trying to get at, is this point, which is helpful for nausea. It's also one of these points that's good for lots of things. And today we're using it not necessarily for nausea unless you need it, but again, to soothe and settle the heart. It can also help with calming anxiety. And so if you're ever, I use this point when I'm in the dentist chair. I don't hate the dentist chair, but it's just not a pleasant experience most of the time. So this is one of the points that I will just hold, which also gives my hands something to do other than clench. So if this is interesting or helpful, you can try it on both sides so you can find the other side. If you're ever, one hand just feels better holding than the other, you can play with that. Again, the 3 finger lengths from the base of your wrist crease down. And you can massage it, you can press and hold, anything that brings some attention there. It is one of the points that's often needled when you go to an acupuncturist. All right, so those are the 2 points that you can play with, the one at the chest here to soothe, and then you can call it the seasick point if you want, but or the anxiety point, the pericardium 6. Okay. Again, you're welcome to stay with those points as long as you'd like, or move into the practice. And for tonight's practice, if you have them nearby, great. If you don't worry about it, but a blanket might be useful, as would be 2 blocks. And for some of you, myself included, a strap, but it's totally optional. You don't have to use any of these things. So we're going to start with a gentle chest opener. I'm going to switch my video here. And for this, I like to use 2 blocks. You can also roll up your blanket. I'll show you in a moment. If you want to use the 2 blocks, we're basically creating a place for your back to rest over. So if you have 2 yoga blocks, I take the tall setting for one and then the medium setting for the other. And they're relatively close to one another, but you'll figure out the exact spot in a moment. And what you're going for is, or going to try anyway, is to have the lower block underneath your mid to upper ribs. And then the higher block is there for the back of your head. And it's sort of this awkward level of comfort that you're looking for, where you have the support in this chest opener so that your arms can rest at your sides, a little bit wider away from you. And you're welcome to keep the feet flat on the floor, knees bent. You could also take the knees wide in butterfly or have them straight. Now, if you wiggle around this or you can't quite get to a place where you feel comfortable, feel free to skip the blocks, or if you don't have them at home, don't worry about it. And instead, you could use something softer. You could even put the blanket on top of the blocks if you're feeling a little bit tender tonight. And create a cylinder, rolling up a blanket. And this will be much less of an arch or a back bend or support, but it will still give you that lift to help open the chest. You're welcome to position pillows or bolsters instead in any way that feels good. And then, as is the style of Yin Yoga, once you've found a shape to be in, feel yourself resting into it. And by that, perhaps you imagine gravity gently drawing you down towards the earth in its motherly, earth-loving way. We'll be here for just a little while, and you're welcome to move around if you need to in any of the postures to adjust. I sometimes refer to this shape as supported fish pose. It's one of my absolute favorites and go-tos. And one of the things I love about it is that as I breathe and the chest cavity expands and contracts with the breath moving in and out, the blocks or the blanket underneath my back sort of have this, there's a change I can feel, the pressure against my back of the heart or back of the chest. I feel more aware of the breath and the movement of the breath. And so if it's interesting to you, you're welcome to tune into that. Take as much time as you like here. Especially in a Yin Yoga practice, as you think about transitioning out of a pose, do so slowly. I've been here for a little while, especially if you have the blocks underneath you, you might feel a little stuck. Some of you might want to bring your hands down to the floor to help you up. And then take a few moments and move in any way that feels good. Sometimes there's a little leftover sensation from the passive position that you were just in. You might even roll back onto your back and give the knees a squeeze, anything at all. I'm going to come up to hands and knees and move around. And perhaps move into some cat and cow and notice how this simple movement, even though it's not a yin movement, it's more fluid, more yang, relatively speaking, how your chest moves, this chest cavity that physically protects the heart muscle and the lungs. When you're ready for the next posture, we'll move into thread the needle, which is a twist from the knees. You also have the option to do twisted child, which I'll show you after I show you thread the needle. So for thread the needle, from hands and knees, you thread one arm through. We'll do both sides. It doesn't matter which one you start with. And if it's possible, bring the shoulder down to the ground and your cheek to the floor. This is where sometimes a folded blanket can feel like a nice support, either for your head or your shoulder. And then make yourself as comfortable as possible. It might even mean creating a pillow for your head with your other hand. If you want to try twisted child, you'll sit back with the knees a bit wider and then take the same arm position. So it doesn't work for everyone, but you can try and see which one works for you. And then again, notice the gentle pull of gravity. You might be aware of your arm, any sensations elsewhere in the body. You might be aware of your breath or some emotion that you feel now or that you experienced earlier today. Take a few more moments, or if you prefer to consider moments as breaths, a few more breaths. And then use your opposite hand to help you unwind and take a few moments again after each shape to wiggle, move, or free the other arm. You can also do something more active like downward dog if it's calling you. I like this one for a counter pose after doing things with the arms in the passive yin way, as you're pressing into the hands actively. And then when you're ready, prepare for your thread the needle twist or your twisted child on the other side. And if life has happened differently to this arm or shoulder, and this needs to look different on this side, be kind to yourself. Maybe you're only halfway up or halfway down, depending on how you look at life. And feel yourself resting into the shape. The goal in each posture is to stimulate some of the points along the relevant meridians. And by doing so, the hope is to free any potentially stuck energy so that things move more easily. An out of balance meridian is often caused by that stuck energy that can happen. And sometimes it's out of balance because it's depleted. Only rest, food, and air will help with the depletion. But my hope is that these postures and our time in them can help with any stuck energy. Take another few moments or breaths. And as you're ready, slowly make your way out. Decide how you want to move next to get rid of any tenderness or sensations that remained from that experience. And then I'm going to remain on my knees, but you're welcome to sit or even sit on a chair or a couch. I'm going to take one of the blocks behind me to make it easier on my knees so that we can do some wrist stretches next. I mentioned both of the meridians that we're working with tonight are in our arms or live in the arms. And so if you lean forward a little bit and then spin your fingers towards you, towards your knee, and open up this underside of the arm, right? The pericardium goes right through the middle. And then the heart meridian is on the karate chop side of your hand or the pinky side of your hand. And you're in charge of how much weight you put on your hand and wrist to feel this. And if you shift where your hips are in space, you'll feel this either more or less. We won't stay here for very long. And if for any reason whatsoever this doesn't feel right, then skip it. Once you've done one side, maybe give the hand a shake and then try the other. So spin the fingers back towards your knees any amount to open up that inside of the forearm. Okay, let go of that as you're ready. Perhaps give the hands a shake or even interlace the fingers and rotate. For this next one, I'm going to stay again on my knees with the support of the block. You're welcome to stay up on high knees instead. And this is where, for some of you, you may decide you want a strap. It's totally optional and you can do it with or without. Here, I'll turn, excuse my back. So you're going to lift your right arm to the sky and keep your left arm by your side and then bend the elbows so that your top hand roughly comes towards the back of your neck and your bottom hand is somewhere close to your low back. And depending on what's available in each shoulder, you may be in a number of different places. Some of you can grab both hands behind your back. I'm not one of those people, and it's certainly not the goal. So this by itself, just holding here, is enough to stimulate the points. If you wanted to have a strap, not in order to force the arms closer, but in order to just have a place where you can hold on to something and feel like you're resting in the pose more, that's where the strap can be really nice. You can also grab onto your shirt instead of a strap. Again, simply holding is fine, but sometimes it feels like you're not able to rest quite in the same way. Now, the Yin Yoga practice aims to also stimulate some of the connective tissues in the body. And the connective tissues in the arms and shoulders is much smaller than that of the lower body and legs. So for some of you who have been in my Yin Yoga classes before, you might notice we're not staying in each posture quite as long as we would some of the other postures you may be familiar with. And that's because of that. It's just not as dense, not as thick, not as large. When you're ready to release, bring your right arm up, your left arm down. Take a moment, maybe even wiggle, shrug the shoulders, or if you're safe to do so, swing the arms around. And then prepare for the other side. So left arm up, right arm down, and then bend the elbows. And right away, I feel a big difference in what's available to me here. I was a swimmer for a very long time competitively, so I feel perhaps the effect of all those yards that I've swum. And so don't be surprised if it feels different on this side, if it looks different. And if you want to grab onto something like your shirt or the strap, feel free. If on this side you want to not, adjust. And then feel yourself resting in the shape. When you're ready to release, gently lift the left arm, lower the right. And just like every other time, take a few moments to wiggle, move. This might be one of those moments that a downward dog with the hands on the floor feels nice. You could simply come into tabletop or even child's pose. If you're getting tired of being on your knees, please feel free to transition to your seat. Again, sitting in or on a couch or chair is a wonderful idea. So for this next one, a couple of options for the legs. We're really focused on the arms, as I've mentioned, but your legs might be like, hey, can I get a little love here? So much focus on the arms and shoulders. So you could have them crisscrossed. You could also have them out wide, or you could do shoelace legs. Again, I'm saying we're focused on the arms, but if you feel like it's possible or desirable, I often like to sit up on a bit of a blanket or a pillow for this one. You can start with your left foot and bring it in close to your right hip. So right away, if this bothers your knee, feel free to skip this. Option one is to bring the right foot in close. And option two, if possible, is to cross it over. So some of you have legs and bodies that let you bring the knees closer to being on top of one another. It's not necessary, but that might be your experience. And right away, I'm feeling like this might be too much for me to then add the arms. So I'm going to undo this, but you can decide what feels right for you. So coming up to the arm portion, because you crossed your right leg on top, you're going to take your left arm on top of the right. So you're doing opposite. It's okay if you do it this way, but just traditionally we do it this way. And then either hold your shoulders and hug yourself, or if it's possible, grab the hands for eagle arms. This is another place where the strap can be useful, because if the hands don't quite want to meet, you can still hold on to something and get some of the sensations down the arm that you might not otherwise. And from here, you can stay upright, or you can fold a little bit forward and add a bit of that bend in the back. Sometimes that can feel really nice for the mid upper back area. And then help yourself back up, unwind the arms, take a moment. And then prepare for the other side. So if you're trying the legs on this side, you can take your right foot in first so that the left leg would cross on top. And again, sometimes things work really well on one side and the other side's like, nope. So feel free. If you like crisscross yoga sauce, maybe you cross the other leg in front. And then this time, right arm on top, either hug yourself, use the strap, or reach for the other hand. Again, all of this is optional, except for breathing and smiling. You're welcome to try the fold if you like it. It's more of like a half fold. You don't need to go all the way towards the floor unless that's your desire. When you feel ready to unwind, do so slowly, mindfully. Maybe bring your hands way back to stretch the other way. Maybe a little side bend, which is where we're going next. Take any amount of time and any movements that feel good here. All right, for the next one, if you like sitting up on that blanket, you're welcome to stay. Take the legs wide for dragonfly pose. Now you can keep both legs wide, or you can pull your left foot in so that you're in a half dragonfly. And then if you still have blocks nearby or something that you can rest yourself on, could be the side of the couch even, I would take that block or set yourself up so that your right side has that. And then lean over and see if your elbow can rest easily there. If so, feel free to stay here. You can also bring your left arm up and over and let it kind of hang onto your head. So we're getting into a bit of the side chest space. And if bringing your left arm up overhead just feels like you can't quite rest in the shape the way you'd like, feel free to change that. This is one of those poses I feel like I could easily fall asleep in. If that's not your experience, please know that that's your experience is perfect just the way it is. Take a few more moments. When you're ready, maybe help yourself up with that right hand. And I like to counter stretch with a twist over that bent knee to turn in the other direction. If there are other movements calling you, explore those. And then set up for the other side. Again, any leg position you like. Maybe it's dragonfly or half dragonfly. And then lean to the left. Perhaps your elbow is on that. Your hand could also be on the floor. And see where you want to be with your right arm on this side. Take a few more moments. And as you're ready, help yourself up out of it. Perhaps twist and take a few moments to move around. I'm going to do a little child's pose. You might be called to something different. And then we'll end with a reclined twist. So when you feel ready, make your way down onto your back. Perhaps draw the knees in for a squeeze. I'm really aware of how the back of my heart, as I call it, that space between the shoulder blades or the mid back, feels against the ground after all the postures we just did. So you can keep your feet lifted, arms wide, palms up if you like, and then lower the knees over to one side. If you get into that twist and you're like, that didn't really work, feel free to lower the feet, take them wide, and then let your legs twist. There are lots of ways to twist. So, and all of them are wonderful. With the arms wide open, back against the floor, imagine yourself embracing the sky, embracing the world. Open to receive all the gifts and love that this universe has for you. When you're ready for the other side, bring your knees back to your starting position and adjust in any way to twist in the other direction. Here again, feel the loving embrace of Mother Earth holding you, and your openness, the chest open to receive, embracing the sky, embracing life. As you're ready, bring your knees back up to your starting position. And if you like, squeeze them in or stretch the legs long. And then roll off to one side and curl up there for a moment. As you're ready, help yourself up to a comfortable seat. Maybe that includes resting your back against a wall or side of the couch. And take a moment here to notice all the energy that we've moved in this practice, even though it's a slow-paced practice. There's a lot of deep movement of the energy in your body, not just in the arms. You're welcome to be here with yourself for as long as you like. Maybe even you take that first point with the fingertips at the center of your chest, if that's soothing to you. And if you are live with me and you have questions, I'll be happy to take them. And I look forward to seeing you again next time.